Hello everybody, my name is Travis Davis. I'm 32 years old. I have two loving parents, Stan and Joanne, and a younger brother named Derek. When I was born prematurely. Out of the womb, the doctors noticed that I had a heart murmur, and they had to do emergency open heart surgery to fix the hole in my heart. Later, they discovered that there was a lack of oxygen that was going in my brain. That caused them to diagnose me with cerebral palsy. You might be wondering what cerebral palsy is. There are 4 different types, but I just want to share what it means for me personally. I have what's called spastic diplegia. Spastic diplegia just affects the lower part of my body. This causes my muscles to be stiff and my walking to be unstable. Throughout my life, I've used different forms of mobility aids. I've used a walker, crutches, and now even a wheelchair. Right after I was born, I had a second open heart surgery within 6 months. Doctors had given up on me, but my parents and God didn't. And because of that, I knew I was meant to be alive. After I got done with this 6-month period and got older, I began to transition into elementary school. And that opened up so many opportunities for me. I can remember one time in PE class, we would play kickball. And in kickball, I had a hard time running the bases, so I always needed help. And I had a friend, Seth, who would run the bases for me because I couldn't run. Thankfully, Seth was very fast. And that time showed me that my friends were compassionate and that they wanted to help me through any activity that we did. I have another story of my last surgery. A week before, I was in class and a friend of mine brought me into another room. Little did I know it was a distraction for what would be a surprise party for my last and 13th surgery. I came back next year with both my legs in casts. I surprised my friends at school, and they were so happy to see me, and they signed my casts, and that was such a cool feeling for me. And I loved how encouraging and supportive my friends were during that time. As I transitioned into high school, my love for basketball started to grow, and I became the manager of the high school boys basketball team. The coach was so wonderful in letting me be a part of the team, and I remember going to trips almost every weekend with the team. The camaraderie and the support that they gave me was wonderful, and it even gave me a little bit of a coaching bug that I would develop down the line. After I graduated high school, I transitioned into college. And a lot of parents, they don't have the means to support their children with disabilities to send them to college, but thankfully that my parents did. I went to Azusa Pacific University, and I got my degree in English. One moment that stands out to me the most is a time I was sitting at lunch with my friend Michael. 3 of his friends came, Michelle, Jillian, and Kelly. They sat down and I started sharing my story with them about how I became disabled and why I use a wheelchair around campus. I left that time with them very positive, and the next day they knocked on my apartment door with a list. And this list was ways that they wanted to help me support other people with disabilities on campus. I was so grateful and amazed that they did this that I wanted to get right to work. I wanted to see what God was doing in me and with this group to impact the lives of people at my university. We had a lot of fun times during this period, and after I graduated on time, I moved back home and I started substitute teaching for 3 years at my high school alma mater. And those 3 years taught me so much about being an educator, but also about teaching others who don't have disabilities about disabilities. Disability awareness is important to me, and being in the classroom and sharing my story and talking about other people with disabilities impacted their lives just as much as they helped me. The story of how I started playing wheelchair basketball is very unique. One night, my parents were coming home from a business meeting in St. Louis when my mom recognized a crutch tip and saw that it was different than what I had. She went over to my dad and asked if we could get some of those for me. A young boy nearby overheard that and went up to my parents and asked if I had a disability. They said yes, and he invited them to bring me to a wheelchair basketball practice. I spent 4 years playing wheelchair basketball, and during that time period, it brought a lot of joy. I was able to be around a community of people that looked like me, that even walked like me, or couldn't walk. And that brought a lot of sense of stability and calmness with my disability. One person that was instrumental in my life during that time was my coach. My coach grew up with polio, and he struggled throughout his years. My coach was able to battle through adversity and become a judge, a well-known judge in the community. Unfortunately, he died last year, but some of the things that he's instilled in me back then, I still keep with me now. It's very important to have a community of like-minded people and other people with disabilities when you're going through a season like this. When I played wheelchair basketball, it allowed me the opportunity to go to so many places around the country. I traveled 3 or 4 times a year, and I remember my parents coming with me on every single trip. In fact, my dad was the van driver. He would load all of us up, 5 of us, twice as many wheelchairs, because when you play wheelchair basketball, you need a lot of chairs. My time in basketball also brought a lot of lows. That included death and how to cope with grief. I knew a lot of friends that had passed away due to their disabilities. Some people with disabilities die sooner than others without disabilities. The life expectancy with somebody with cerebral palsy is as average as someone who doesn't have a disability. But if I didn't have that experience playing wheelchair basketball, I wouldn't know what it's like to be on a team, to be disciplined. Being on a team of wheelchair basketball taught me to enjoy life to its fullest and to enjoy every single moment. Now, my parents, they introduced me to basketball, but they also motivated me, taught me great values, taught me about God, and strengthened my faith. I want to share with you the importance of a parent's role in a child's life who have a disability. On day 1, it was a roller coaster of emotions for my parents when they had me. There was a lot of fear and a lot of unknowns. Thankfully, they were able to get past that. And a decision they had to make was whether or not to have a second child. Thankfully, they did. I have a younger brother, as I mentioned before. His name is Derek, and he's able-bodied. We get along great, and I'm so thankful for his support throughout the years. A lot of times, parents who have children with disabilities, they face a lot of hardships, including financial. I remember so many times going to the hospitals and my parents having to pay so many doctor bills and medical bills. That can add up over time. Thankfully, we have the means to do all that, but there are a lot of parents out there who don't. But there are resources that can help, like SOAR. Another thing that I saw my parents struggle with is time alone. Having a child with a disability can be time-consuming, and your focus is all on them. And that is also something that parents with children with disabilities face. I'm grateful that my parents were able to instill such great values in me. And there's a lot of sacrifice that also comes with having a child with a disability. My parents sacrificed so much with school, taking me to places, and supporting me in the things that I wanted to do as I grew older. The ministry of SOAR is so important to the lives of people with disabilities because they provide resources to families who have children with disabilities. And it's important that organizations like this exist because they help with so many of the hardships that families face. It can be so difficult when you don't have anybody to turn to, but organizations like SOAR help with that. I want to leave you all with some words of hope. If anybody that's watching who has a disability, or if you're a parent of a child with a disability, I want you to know that there are ministries out there like SOAR and other ministries that help support people with disabilities. You don't have to do this alone. I want to be an example of someone who has faced adversity through patience, support, and my faith. I hope you all have enjoyed this talk, and you can contact me below with my email address. Thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you all soon. Thanks.